Sunday's playoff games in the NFL, and we're going to start first of all with Baltimore and Tennessee, the playoff rematch. We also get the rematch from not too long ago, earlier this season, won both by Tennessee. So, no surprise, Baltimore's favorite. So Baltimore's now a 3.5 point favorite over a team that they could not beat at home last year in the playoffs. They could not beat earlier this season in the regular season at home. And yet they're still the favorite, and we know why. They've won 5 straight. They covered 6 straight. Lamar Jackson, and he's always going to get bet up. I know that there's talk about Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to win the playoff game and all that. But look, it's 2 games. So even I am not going to slam Lamar Jackson being 0-2, especially how young he is. But it's just a point that here's a guy that's had so much success, not in the regular season, and then he gets to the postseason. He hasn't had the same success. He's had actually 5 turnovers to 3 touchdowns in the postseason. And in the regular season, when he has to step up, it's not so easy for Lamar Jackson. He likes to beat up a lot on the bad teams. The stats go up pretty high when he plays bad teams. He can beat good teams, but he doesn't have anywhere near the success against the better football teams. And that's why I'm just taking Tennessee again. I just think they're being disrespected here. I just think also the matchup is a good matchup. It doesn't take an expert to know that Tennessee matches up well with Baltimore.
Well, I mentioned 2 popular public playoff teams. The other one is the Baltimore Ravens. They're a team that nobody can get enough of. Everybody, the public, cannot get enough of with this football team. One, because of the way in which they closed the season with 5 consecutive wins. Break those down, 4 of those wins came against teams that were 17, 46, and 1 this season. 2, you've got in the Baltimore Ravens a football team that is being packed for the line in this game because 1, Tennessee beat them at Baltimore last year, and 2, Tennessee beat them at Baltimore again this year. So you have a double revenge chip on the shoulder for the Ravens, which is packed into this line as well. And what's being totally forgotten in the handicap of the football game, or at least in the eyes of the odds maker and the betting public, is the fact that the Tennessee Titans can play. This is a football team here right now that coming into this contest, they have an equal or better record than do the Baltimore Ravens. And the reason I'm calling that out is this. When you find home dogs in the NFL playoffs that have either an equal or better record than their favorite opponent, those teams are 20-6 against the spread. Pretty nice little number there for Baltimore. Yes. And you've also got here Ryan Tannehill in his days with Miami and here with Tennessee as well. He's gone up against the AFC North 17 times. The underdog in those games is 14-3 against the spread. He's the underdog in this football game. And this is a Rodney Dangerfield, as you mentioned, disrespect factor here for the Tennessee Titans. What are we doing the home dog in this football game when all we've proven is the fact that we know how to and we've shown we can beat the Baltimore Ravens, yet we're still the underdog in this game? I'm going to make Tennessee my second play in fading the public in this football contest.
Yeah, I like Tennessee as the outright dog as well. Might be enticing. They're, again, being 3.5, close game. You can still take the points. I think the money line is up to about between plus 150, plus 160, which is right around the point where I actually start thinking about taking a money line. That's at that number where I'm, okay, maybe I'll do that. But considering this game is on Sunday, it also gives me an opportunity to kind of play around if I want to do a parlay and I want to use the money line early on Sunday for one of the later games. Then I can say, okay, maybe I do a game on Saturday, parlay it with the money line on the early game on Sunday into one of the other games, or the championship college game on Monday, which I can do, which we'll get into later. Then it just obviously that puts your compensation, drives it up a lot more than if you were going with a +4 situation, or +3.5. But that's just something that to consider. But I agree with you. I just say, why not? It's prove it to me. Baltimore needs to prove that they can beat Tennessee before I will stick my neck out and take Baltimore. I would rather not touch the game if I was going to think about Baltimore. than to take Baltimore. I mean, they have to prove it, and they haven't proved it yet. They haven't earned the right to be a 3.5-point favorite against Tennessee in this spot. I think this is going to be a high-scoring football game. I really do. I think either way, it's Tennessee's offense is just humming right now. They've got an elite receiver. They have the best running back in football, and you got a Baltimore team's offense that is also peaking right now. They're running the hell out of the ball right now, which is great. Which opens up the passing game for Lamar. And Tennessee, look, their weakness is completely the defense. And that's why I can't take Tennessee on a long run. Maybe I can have them win a couple of games again, like last year, but they can't go farther than that. Their defense is just not very good.
I concur. I concur completely. And we mentioned Lamar Jackson. You opened up with him about the fact that he's being shot down because he hasn't won a playoff game in only 2 starts. But what he does is he is what we call a cripple shooter. He beats up on bad teams. He's 19-3 against losing teams. Against teams that have a win percentage of 66% or better, he's 8-6 straight up and against the spread. The better the competition, the more likely Lamar Jackson is to disappear. This is a good quality opponent that he's playing here who fits the bill. So, again, I'm only going to reiterate and confirm the fact that I, like you, will be on the Tennessee Titans.
Best wins of the season, Baltimore beat Washington and the Colts and also swept Cleveland. But Baltimore was swept by Pittsburgh, lost to Kansas City, and, of course, to Tennessee. Tennessee had that blowout win over Buffalo, remember, early in the season on a Tuesday. They also beat Chicago, Baltimore, and Indianapolis, losing to Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Indianapolis, that was a split, and Green Bay. Meanwhile, Tennessee, 3-2, straight up and against the spread their last 5 as playoff dogs. That's just over the last 10 years alone. They've won 2 of the last 3 as dogs. Let's see. Actually, yeah, they've won 2 of the last 3 as dogs, including the fact that if you take a look at it, in the game last year, the playoff game, they were a 10-point dog, and they won by 16.
Wow, nice.
That was pretty impressive. All right, let's go to Chicago and New Orleans. And again, as we talked about in the open, this is the game that I'm just, if I had a game to throw away, this would be it. But I'm leaning towards New Orleans. But I just look, and I'd be a lot happier to know Roquan Smith ain't going to play. That's for sure. If Roquan Smith doesn't play, I'm definitely, I feel a lot more confident with taking New Orleans. But I just don't like the fact that the Saints are 0-5 against the spread their last 5 as playoff favorites. I just don't like that at all. Breeze is only 2-9 against the spread as a favorite in the postseason. The Saints 2-11 all time in the playoffs against the spread as a favorite. That's not all, something I'd be confident about. Given 10, we're not talking about a 3, 5, 7. We're talking 10. That's a big number in the postseason.
Yes, it is.
Yep. This is a rematch of the game earlier this year, which was actually a close football game. Chicago came back late in the game, sent it to overtime, had an opportunity with the ball in their hands to win it in overtime, couldn't do it. Saints kicked the field goal and beat Chicago. So I think that works out well for the Bears to know that, hey, even though it was outdoors in Chicago, this will be really where New Orleans wants to play. A team like the Bears, indoors, away from the conditions, a team, as good as the Bears are defensively. But I think that'll help the Bears as well. And Trubisky, even though he lost a playoff game to the Eagles a couple of years ago, he wasn't the reason they lost. He actually had a pretty decent game, so he didn't have a bad playoff game. And by the way, when these two teams first played, it was Nick Foles, not Mitch Trubisky. So just keep that in mind too.
Yes, exactly right. And you've got here. I know the bad rap that New Orleans has taken in these playoffs here, and they met with a lot of bad luck, if you will, arguably bad luck. But again, I'm gonna go back to what we opened the conversation with on this show, and that's the fact that New Orleans probably feels they deserve to be a week of rest team in the playoffs this season here. Okay, and they didn't get it. Okay, and I think it really going to end up POing them off here in this football game. And that beeping sound that you heard last Sunday was the Chicago Bears backing into the playoffs.
Yep.
This is a football team that is really arguably the most least deserving of all the teams that are in the playoffs this particular weekend. Against a team that's angry and a team that's mad. Now, I'm not the type of a guy that's going to go out and lay double digits in the playoffs and open-handedly just snap rubber band on the bankroll and go back them. But this is a Chicago Bears football team that I want no part of this weekend. So I would say if you play this game, you play New Orleans or you don't touch the football game.
Uh, Bears 0-7 straight up and against the spread. Their last 7 versus 666 opponents or greater as far as their win percentage in postseason play. So that's not a good sign.
No.
The last playoff win for Chicago was over Seattle in 2010 under Lovie Smith. Why is that interesting? Because in 2010, as I queue up, nope, not those highlights, as I queue up these highlights of Marshawn Lynch running all over the Saints defense late in the game the week before Seattle played Chicago in 2010, when Seattle had a 7-9 record in that game. It was a classic game. We all remember it a lot because of what Marshawn Lynch did in that game. That was a 41-36 epic wild card win by Seattle as a 7-win playoff team. And now the Saints are taking on another non-winning playoff team this week.
Well, that non-winning playoff team that you're alluding to, okay, that goes back to my observation about Washington. Those non-winning teams really do rather well in the playoffs.
Yep.
And it's because they're disrespected. They're getting a lot of points from the odds maker and all those good things. But I don't like the sound of the Bears backing into the playoffs.
No, neither do I.
No,
and also how the Saints have lost the last few years is all
Yes.
I mean, this is that first game back into the playoffs where they've been like, look, enough of this. Let's not make this close. Let's just make sure we're in the fourth quarter. We have a 3-score lead. It's comfortable. Let's get off to a big start as possible. I expect that to happen. I am a little bit concerned with, all right, Kamara. He's coming off COVID. How will he play? I mean, we've seen players a little sluggish after COVID. What about Michael Thomas? How is he going to be? He hasn't played in a while. Even Drew Brees is not at his peak form. So that concerns me, but I'm with you that I think New Orleans might just be in that situation, and because if they were playing maybe Minnesota again, I might think differently because you have Kirk Cousins, you have some other players around the team that have had a little success or that they've been winning players for a while, a coach, Zimmer and stuff, or just another team like that. But the Bears, it's just. After not just that they lost to the Packers, but that they got blown out in the fourth quarter. It just got ugly. The Bears were playing for a seed. The Bears were playing for their playoff lives, and they got beat up. And that's not a good sign.
Not a good sign at all. Not a good sign for a team that has really, really struggled in the playoffs. As you mentioned here, 1-9, straight up into the number, last 10 playoff games. I don't know why anything changes in a football game like this.
Okay, now Pittsburgh and Cleveland wrap it up on Sunday night. And we have some interesting tidbits here. First of all, I'm going to throw in this first clip, and that is a clip of the last time the Cleveland Browns won a playoff game. It was, do you remember that game?
I remember you telling me it was Kelly Holcomb at quarterback.
No. That was the last playoff game. That was the Pittsburgh game.
Yes. So what are you talking about?
The last time they won a playoff game.
Oh, they won a playoff game. Okay. No, I do not remember that.
It was Bill Belichick versus Bill Parcells.
Okay, there you go.
It was Bill Belichick's first playoff win, and it was the Cleveland Browns' last playoff win. I think the Browns are kicking themselves for letting Bill Belichick go, or what? But
well, you know why they let him go. You know the reason behind that is that Art Modell pulled the team out of Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay. And everything fell apart from that point forward. He had a great coaching staff, did Belichick. He was putting a really, really good football team together there, and he was coming into his own. But Art Modell loaded that van up and snuck off to Baltimore, and that all dissipated.
Yeah, and the Browns are still waiting to get that playoff win again. 1994, last time the Browns won a playoff game. Now, actually, what I'll do is I'm not going to. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to show you just condensed highlights of that game that we showed you highlights of a few weeks ago, and that was, yes, the Kelly Holcomb, Tommy Maddox game. This was the last time the Cleveland Browns were in the postseason. This was 2002. This was the Kelly Holcomb, who threw for 429 yards in the game and 3 touchdowns, and the loss to Tommy Maddox, who threw for 367 and 3 touchdowns. The Browns led by 12 points with 4 minutes to go in the game and lost. That's typical Cleveland Brown football. So it kind of reminds me of the Jets in a playoff loss. As a matter of fact, the Browns have lost their last 2 playoff games against Pittsburgh. Before that, they lost the 94 divisional round to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the history of Cleveland and Pittsburgh has been completely one-sided.
Yeah, obviously completely one-sided. That's what I think motivates Cleveland in this football game here. 23-2-1. That's pretty lopsided, if you will. But I'm going to tell you this, that in those 26 football games that the Browns have played against Ben Roethlisberger, who is 23-2-1 over Cleveland, only one time did the Cleveland Browns own a winning record going into those games.
Okay.
That was when they lost 36-33 and handily covered the spread in that contest. This is not the Cleveland Browns that we're talking about.
Oh, that was that playoff game then.
In the past, yes.
Yeah, that was that playoff game.
We're not talking about the Cleveland Browns of old. We're talking about a Cleveland Browns football team that has given this franchise new life, new hope, and everything else. So I think you can throw all those history marks for Pittsburgh right out the window. And I'm also going to bring out the point about Ben Roethlisberger dominating Cleveland. Yes, maybe he has against those lousy football teams. But he's also lost 6 of his last 9 playoff games. Straight up and against the spread has Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger has a 30-24 touchdown to interception ratio in the postseason. And he's been sacked 51 times in the postseason in 21 games. So, yeah, he's 13-8. He's got a Super Bowl, but there's a lot of bad, not just good for Ben Roethlisberger. And most of the uncertainty and the negative stuff has occurred after getting off to such a great start.
Yeah, that was a young, more nimble Ben Roethlisberger. He's a statute these days, okay? He can't throw the ball long. They had to give him a week of rest, and they conceded the game against Cleveland last week for all intents and purposes. We're not seeing anything close to what was vintage Ben Roethlisberger here. We're seeing a tarnished Ben Roethlisberger here in this contest here. And in fact, the Browns have the quarterback edge in this game going into this contest because Baker Mayfield has had a much better season than has Ben Roethlisberger, and we're seeing Roethlisberger really beginning to unravel as the season wears on. I still think he's injured or he's hurt, and they're not sharing a lot of that with us right now at this point. But you've still got this COVID situation surrounding the Cleveland Browns, and unfortunately, it's not a good situation for Cleveland.
To not have your head coach there is not
good. No, and your all-star pro guard, and your starting linebacker, and coaches, and on and on and on. You can't practice. You can't open the facilities because of the COVID situation. This is an ugly, ugly mess for the Cleveland Browns. But this is a Cleveland Browns football team that's very prideful in what it is they've accomplished. And I see no way, shape, or form are they laying down in this football game here in Pittsburgh because the game's at Pittsburgh. Yes, Pittsburgh has a couple of weapons on the field that they'd be really, really concerned about, but they don't have a running game. The Browns do. And I think that's the big edge for the Cleveland Browns in this contest. And I think that's where Cleveland's going to win this football game is by dominating on the ground. By dominating on the ground and stuffing Pittsburgh on the ground. I think that's the edge Cleveland has in this contest.
Win the game outright. I like it. Okay.
There you go.
So that's good. I like it. I mean, look, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I do hope that Cleveland can overcome those odds. I think the thing that I just think it's just so much with Stefanski not able to be there. But who knows? Maybe they can use it as a rallying cry, and nobody's expecting him to win. And this history that you talked about, and the pressure's off. They had all the pressure in the world last week, and they almost buckled. I mean, 4th and 10. Chucks the ball in the end zone. It comes down with it. They get the ball with an opportunity, it looks like, and you're thinking, oh, no. And they almost got the onside kick. And it was like, you knew when Pittsburgh got the onside kick, Cleveland was done. So the fact that they were able to get over the hump was so huge, and maybe that'll be a big advantage for them. Not Tom, just like Roethlisberger, early good. Since the Super Bowl win in 2008. He's just 3-6 in his last 9 playoff games. 8-7 in his career. Meanwhile, the one thing that also is on my side, taking Cleveland, and you noted this in the emails during the week this week, one of the emails, that playoff teams with 6 or fewer wins the previous season are just 5-31 straight up, 10-25-1 against the spread versus division opponents. Obviously, this is a division opponent. The Steelers are 0-2 straight up and against the spread in their last 2 playoff games, with their last win in the 2016 wild card round against Adam Gase and the Miami Dolphins. But I'm going to go ahead and take Pittsburgh minus the 6. But I hope you're right. I'd love to see Cleveland win this game.
Well, I too would as a Cleveland fan, and I too would also like handicapping a football contest here. And I'm going to throw one more parting shot out in Cleveland Browns' favor in this contest here.
Okay.
And it also applies to the Indianapolis Colts this weekend. And what it is basically is this, is in the National Football League playoffs, when you find an underdog that comes into a game that was favored by double digits their previous game,
All right.
okay, and won the game in that contest, and they're taking 3 or more points, those teams are a terrific 11-1 against the spread in the playoffs.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a big, big number for Cleveland to come to their support, changing roles from a double-digit favorite to a dog. And I realize you got right back revenge for Pittsburgh and yada, 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 and all these types of things and all the anti-COVID stuff against Cleveland here. But I just feel some way, somehow, down deep, this football team is going to dig down and come up with their best performance of the year.
All right, I'd certainly like to see that. The last team to advance to the Super Bowl without winning a division title was?
The last team to win a Super Bowl without, I mean, you're talking about being a wild card winner?
Yes.
A wild card playoff team? That may well have been the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Actually, it was the Green Bay Packers who beat
Okay.
Pittsburgh in
Okay, there
2010.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Okay. Now, let's get to predictions, and then we're going to get your also your thoughts on the college football championship game. AFC. So you like Cleveland, the Bills, and who else to win in the AFC?
Are you talking about moving forward
Playoffs.
or
Tennessee. So you
from this
like
weekend?
Tennessee, Cleveland, and Buffalo to win. That means that you will have Kansas City versus Cleveland next week and Buffalo against Tennessee, correct?
Correct.
All right, who do you like there?
Well, obviously Kansas City over Cleveland. If Cleveland were to win this football game, their
Kansas
feet
City,
won't.
Cleveland, and Buffalo
Yep.
versus Tennessee.
Of those 4, who to advance?
Yep.
Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, so Kansas City, you have them beating the Browns, and then you have, right now, do you think Buffalo will beat Tennessee or vice versa?
Right now, I think Buffalo will beat Tennessee, yes.
So you're going to go with the top 2 with the Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl. All right, NFC, the way you have it, did you take Washington to win?
No.
Okay, so you got Tampa Bay to win. You also have New Orleans to win. And Seattle or the Rams?
I like the Rams in the upset.
The Rams in the upset to win. Okay. So you got the Rams and Tampa Bay and New Orleans. Okay, so you got so that means it's the Packers and the Rams and Tampa Bay versus New Orleans. Okay. Who do you like there? You like the Packers over the Rams?
I like the Packers, and I like New Orleans.
So you got, who do you like to win it?
I like the Green Bay Packers.
All right, so that's going to be, because your preseason was New Orleans, right?
Yes, it was, but I'm looking at the way Green Bay's played this football season
I agree.
so far. Okay. And, I think that switches roles in this particular sense. But, to me, it's a coin flip, New Orleans and Green Bay. But right now, the way they're playing, lean Green Bay Packers.
All right, and Green Bay, Kansas City, who do you like?
Tough call, but I'm going to lean with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, that's actually what I have. I have Green Bay over Buffalo in the Super Bowl. And you have Green Bay over Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
All right, so we both like the Packers. We'll talk more about the Packers next week. Before I let you go, though, the college football championship game is on Monday. And originally I liked Clemson, so if Ohio State had won a sloppy game, had they won a game where it's okay, it was a win, but I wasn't overly impressed, I'd probably like Alabama this week, but I don't. I still didn't see anything in Alabama against Notre Dame that leads me to believe, because especially Notre Dame's offense isn't going to give you anything. They're not a true test. Florida was a true test. They scored all over Alabama. And after what I saw from Fields and that offense and the running game, the offensive line, the defensive line was outstanding for the Buckeyes. I'm going to take Ohio State. Now, I love the fact that they're getting 8.5 points. So that's the debate, which way to go heavy on the 9 or gamble on the 3-1 money line. I mean, this is just a great game to gamble on the 3-1 money line in my case. I mean, you get a team that is just red hot. They had a huge win. The quarterback is just dialed in. I think they're going to score all over Alabama. I think Alabama's going to score. It's going to be a high-scoring, exciting football game. But in games like that I think either team has a good chance to win, why wouldn't I take the chance on the money line with the Buckeyes and say, hey, I got a really good money line play here, and that's why I'm taking Ohio State to win the game on Monday.
Well, let's tell it like it is, Greg, okay? When you get to a college football national championship game, either team can win the game.
Yes, exactly.
They're both very, very good football teams.
Yep.
My main concern for Ohio State in this football game is they just pitched the no-hitter last game.
True.
Against Clemson. You know who the last person to go back-to-back no-hitters ever was?
Was it Sandy Koufax?
Johnny Vandermeer.
Johnny Vandermeer. A little before my time, yes.
Yeah, a little bit before mine, too. The only pitcher in Major League Baseball history to throw back-to-back no-hitters, okay? So can Ohio State do the same thing?
Well, they did it with Urban Meyer.
Yes, okay. But I'm talking about no-hitters where they won big as an underdog and they're going to come back as big or larger an underdog the next football game.
Well, that year what they did it with Urban Meyer, they were the underdog. Remember, they got in and nobody really thought they were going to do anything in the playoffs. I forget who that quarterback, that Charger guy, that backup that never became anything. That was like
Craig Hensel.
No, he was a big physical black quarterback that.
Yeah, the big guy he was from Cleveland.
And then he was thrust into the starting role late in the season, I think due to an injury, and he just had a tremendous run. He had like that big win, I think, against Wisconsin in the championship game, and he just got hot, and then they won both games as dogs, and the game against Alabama.
Cardell
Jones, yes.
Right.
So that's why now look, I feel a lot more comfortable with Urban Meyer on the sidelines, but the Buckeyes wouldn't be a 3-1 underdog with Urban Meyer on the sidelines.
Well, that's part of the equation in this football game here is the no respect that Ryan Day gets. And I think you're going to end up seeing Ryan Day coaching in the National Football League here sooner than later, okay? Mm-hmm. And if they win a national championship, it could be much sooner than later,
True.
Okay? Look at what they've done. They're 23-1 in his 24 games. They've out-yarded every opponent they've played by an average of 241 yards a game. That's powerful. They don't just win the stats. They push people all over the field and do just that.
Yep.
He's an unsung coach right now in what he's doing. And I also like the fact that they're 14-0 against the spread the last 14 times. They've been an underdog of 3 or more points.
Love that.
That's a great stat, isn't it?
Yes.
And you're talking about a handful of points here, 8.5 points here. Only one way to look, and that's to take the points with Ohio State.
Yes.
The concern, obviously, is Justin Fields and his ribs, the Buckeyes and the COVID situation, and the no-hitter factor. But you're talking about a team here that's loaded with 4- and 5-star blue-chip recruits on this roster, much like Alabama is as well. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to hearken to the point again that when Alabama won those 5 national championships with Nick Saban, those teams allowed an average of 243 yards a game. This team allows 343 yards a game, okay? The defense is nowhere near what Nick Saban used to or has seen in the past, okay?
Patrick Surtain, that's all they have.
That's it. I mean, as far as a defensive star.
Yeah, that's it. They got one guy, one star.
Exactly. So, it's not like we're going into a wall here, an impenetrable wall here in Alabama. We're not doing that, okay? Now, I think it'll allow Ohio State to do what they want to do. I feel the most valuable player in this football game will be Trey Sermon. the running back from Ohio State. And I think
Yes.
they'll utilize him to the max to keep their Heisman Trophy winner and Mac Jones off the field as much as possible, give time of possession to Ohio State, and open up the passing game. I think this is going to be a really, really good football game to watch, and I only hope that the Buckeyes aren't laden with the COVID factor, the Fauci factor in this game.
Yeah, we definitely hope that, no question. And that's why I love the fact that it's the only chance you got now, the rest of the playoffs, where you've got 6 playoff games and an opportunity to parlay your way into that Monday night game, which is exactly what I'm trying to take advantage of. You know, I've got two that I'm trying to do, and that one is definitely going to be the 9. I mean, to me, if you can get the 9, that's great. But to make the big money, if you can get a couple of games you like, maybe one Saturday, one Sunday, and then that last game is sitting there on Monday night with a 3-1 money line, you know, it inflates the number of your parlay and gives you a really good chance to win out there. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try to roll the dice with Ohio State as the final game of a few parlays. But either way, I think we're on the same page with Ohio State getting 9.
And let me digress a little bit before we close out this championship game here. We had run a poll, which we do on our playbook.com website just about every week or every bi-weekly. And our poll for this week is, when the college football playoffs come back next year, what would you like to see? How many teams in the playoffs? And we gave everybody an option to choose 4, 6, 8, 10, or 12 teams, even 16. Overwhelmingly, and I'm talking like 9 or 10 to 1, which do you feel the fans wanted to see? How many teams in the college football playoffs?
Well, for me, it would be a minimum of 8. That's for me. I mean, so for me it would be, I think what I would probably do is something like what are there? 8? I'd probably have like 8. 10 is probably the number, because I'd like to do where you have 8 and then you give 2 teams maybe an opportunity to get a bye week or something, the top 2 teams, and you get 8 other teams. So I'd probably say like 8 or 10. That would be me.
It was 8, exactly what it is. Just double the amount of teams and everybody will be happy. And what's wrong with keeping the fans happy? And
Yep.
what's wrong with generating more revenue for the NCAA?
That's it.
Yep.
That's why, because see, if you have 8, what I want to do is give every conference champion an invite.
An
Every one of them.
automatic invite.
Automatic invite. And then
Exactly.
I add those other 2 to the at-large. Now I'm giving like Alabama and Clemson an opportunity to have the week off, and then you go on from there. So yeah, something like that I think would make sense, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do.
I think you can go so far as to say, out of the Power 5 teams that were non-conference winners, you can have one of them be awarded a playoff spot, and the other one would be the best group of 5 team would make the playoff as well.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
absolutely.
That would be a really nicely balanced football playoff.
Just sounds too logical, Mark.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
They won't do that. All right, Mark. So next week it's off to the no more college football, and it'll just be the divisional rounds of the NFL playoffs. So we're looking forward to that as well. Before I let you go, though, playbook.com, we've been gearing towards this time of the season, and for the first time, you have sent out the newsletter for basketball. So how about that?
Yep. Yeah, we're hooping it up right now with basketball. I've been waiting for the college football bowl games to wind down to be able to devote some time to that. So the college basketball weekly newsletter is available every Friday online, playbook.com. A nice discussion of basketball games, some awesome angles, tips, trends, power ratings. Check it out if you like basketball at playbook.com.
Well, as soon as we get close to the tournament, we'll definitely do some college basketball talk on the Prime Sports Network, no question. And I just hope by the time we get to April, March, I hope that they start letting some fans in. I doubt it, but I hope so. I can't take this college basketball with no fans.
I'm 100% with you.
It's just unwatchable. All right, Mark, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Hey, Greg, enjoy the games. Be well. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next week.